Morning guys, Dr. Ken Nordberg here, fireside. It's kind of nice to be back home. This last 4 days I spent in the woods. Got home Sunday evening, a couple days ago. Was a tough 4 days. John and I spent the time up there finishing trail work and selecting and preparing stand sites, and prepared one you won't believe. Wait till you see it in the coming video. But today I wanted to talk about another subject. You know, back when I was young, that's a long time ago, I'm 86 now, but back when I was, say, 10 to 15 years of age, in that time frame, I was a devout reader of the outdoor magazines, Field and Stream and Sports and Field and Outdoor Life, and I couldn't wait to get the next issue every month. And back in those days, in, like, say, the months of September and October, you'd see covers on magazines where there'd be guys out grouse hunting, or a man grouse hunting, and maybe a pointing dog along his side, and a grouse is flushing on the picture. Back in those days, and later, well, next couple decades actually, hunting was different than it is today. Quite a bit different. Back then, if you were going to be a good grouse shot, or pheasant shot, or duck shot, or maybe geese as well, you joined a club, a hunt club, an outdoor club that had a skeet range, and you shot clay pigeons a lot in late summer, getting ready for the season. And people took pride in taking grouse with wing shots. And they would not do it any other way. Beginning back in the 1930s and before, when laws and regulations were made to protect wild game and not overhunt our game anymore, which we were doing up to that time, sportsmanship became a big word, and part of sportsmanship was not taking advantage of game animals in any way and hunting them sportsmanlike, like shooting grouse on the wing rather than on the ground. I forget the term they used back in those days for somebody who actually shot grouse that were on the ground. It wasn't a good word. People didn't look down their nose at that. Not that I didn't do it. You know, my first gun was a .22, and when grouse season came along, my grandmother couldn't wait for my cousin Guy to go out in the woods and get some grouse with our .22s, and we were expected to shoot grouse in the head. Well, when I got to be a little older and I got my first shotgun, she used to frown and just say, "I don't want any grouse shot with a shotgun with all full of BBs. That's terrible." Well, things changed, of course, but by that time we were talking this sportsmanship. You shoot them on the wing only. And the reason I'm saying that is this. During the last 8 days I spent up in my study area, up near the Canadian border, camping on this little access road. It's a mile long, just an old forestry road that's almost all grown in. On this little forestry road, a mile long, there was traffic, cars going up and down, all road hunters, and they were hunting grouse. I've spent 4 trips now recently in the woods, studying deer and wolves during the past year, you know, in summer, late summer, spring. But during the grouse season, there wasn't one single grouse hunter seen in the woods carrying a gun, actually hunting on foot. They're all driving up and down and obviously shooting grouse from their vehicles. Now, I remember some of the devout sportsmen years ago, like Teddy Roosevelt, my God, he'd be, the guy that started Boone and Crockett Club, he would be furious to see the way people are hunting grouse today. But it's gotten to the point where everybody's And even deer hunters, gee, road hunters all the time. People can't seem to hunt unless they got wheels under them anymore. You know, it's kind of amazing how much people will spend to make hunting easier nowadays. You know, an ATV, a good one nowadays, well, there's all prices, but up to, say, 13,000 for one. Or the so-called UTV or OHV, whatever you want to call them. These vehicles, you know, like ATVs, they can ride off trail in the woods. Well, you know, we never, in my gang, we never got really serious about using ATVs for hunting, except maybe to bring in a deer or a bear. But where we hunt, you can't really use them very much. There's only certain trails that these motorized vehicles are legal on. Now, on my little mile-long forestry trail, there's some old logging trails that go off in the woods that people have been driving ATVs on, and some of them you could only go about 3 blocks, and then they were blocked by new growth of timber. But people couldn't even walk 3 blocks without sitting on an ATV trying to take a grouse. And this is getting to be silly, you know. And it's strictly illegal for people to be doing that where we hunt, on public land. You can't just go anywhere you want on an off-trail vehicle like you did before. But it seems like, you know, people are willing to spend maybe $26,000 for a 2 or 4 seater, you know, that you can drive off into the woods. And nobody's thinking about whether it's worth it or if it really can help deer hunting. You know, back in the old days, you could drive a car down the country road and there would be deer feeding along the side, and as long as you didn't stop, you could drive right by them and the deer wouldn't run away. And I think a lot of people got the idea that one of those kind of off-trail vehicles would be really great. You could drive out through the woods or right up to where a deer is standing and then shoot them. And that's what's been going on since, about the 1980s, 70s, and 80s, in that period. That's been going on. I had known guys who bragged that they never shot a deer except from the seat of their ATVs. Well, that's changed. You know, we've talked about it in a previous seminar about nowadays when you're driving a vehicle, a motorized vehicle, and you stop it to look at some deer that are nearby, they're going to run away. And today's whitetails, especially the older ones, here I got a little, here, bucks with antlers like this, they aren't fooled anymore by vehicles that suddenly stop in the woods nearby. And there's other reasons why what you might be doing using an ATV or any other motorized vehicle to get close to a stand site or a place where you plan to hunt on foot is actually making your odds of taking a deer, and especially an older deer, an older buck, practically zero. You know, every advantage hunters have come up with that gives, you know, anything they've come up with that might give them an advantage of taking deer and big bucks, you know, like they did back in the mid-'80s when portable tree stands were introduced and doe and estrus type lure scents, buck lure scents were introduced. Man, did that make hunting easier, especially for taking bucks, and including the biggest bucks in the woods. Those were great inventions in that time. But there hasn't been anything ever developed by hunters that give them an advantage in my lifetime that I know of that whitetails didn't learn to counter within 10 years. Generally, all across the nation, you get 15 million guys using tree stands and doe and estrus lure scents every year. Pretty soon, most of those deer that survive are not going to be easy to hunt by hunters doing that. Well, the same thing is happening with off-trail vehicles. Today, older whitetails, especially older bucks, are not fooled by hunters using off-trail vehicles to get close to them. When they can hear these things coming, you know, there's a lot of guys, they treat, like here's a little ATV, they treat this vehicle as if, or use it as if whitetails can't see it or hear it or smell it. My goodness, that is so wrong. They don't realize what an enormous and strong smelling trail scent these things make. Now, just to kind of show you what's going on here now. Here's a diagram. And here is a trail made by an ATV. You see that? Now, okay, now look at this, you guys. Here's a diagram of a trail made by an off-road vehicle, an ATV in this case, in the woods. Now, when you're out there hunting, all you see is the wheel marks. But when a deer comes onto that trail, they smell a lot. Now here's a trail made by a single hunter. Let's say it's in the snow in the woods, and you see his tracks going along through the snow like that. Well, everything, a hunter's body and clothing and everything you carry, even your gun, constantly emits odorous or odor-causing molecules. Some of them go drifting off through the air up to 200 yards downwind, maybe even a mile, carried by the wind, downwind. But a lot of those molecules that have odor fall to the ground. And so wherever the hunter goes, he creates a carpet of molecules that have odorant along his trail. It's not just on the footprints. In the middle of that trail are footprints. And all those footprints are made by hunters wearing boots with rubber soles on them nowadays. You hardly ever find boots anymore with leather soles, and which were even worse. Now that rubber, you smell your boots sometimes. Smell the soles of your boots sometimes, just to check to see what I'm talking about here. You take that sole of a rubber boot up and sniff it, it smells like rubber. And to you that might not seem like a very serious thing, but then you might think, oh gee, I should do something about that, and spray the soles of your boots with a so-called scent killer. Well, how far can you walk before that scent killer will be rubbed off? Maybe 2, 3, 4 steps in the woods, and pretty soon that rubber smell's coming through. And today, there's not a whitetail in the woods, practically none anywhere, that are 3.5 years of age or older. These are the older deer that have survived at least 3 or more hunting seasons, that doesn't recognize that rubber smelling tracks are made by humans only, hunters only. And you can't stop that rubber smell from being deposited on your trail anywhere, or the lighter smell. But those old deer have excellent sense of smell. My dog can find me in the woods following my trail scent on the run easily. And deer with longer heads and more space within their nasal cavities for smelling things, they have even more sensitive noses. Thousands of times more sensitive than human noses. And they can smell those little odor-causing molecules along your trail that you leave behind wherever you go. And then that strong smell of rubber in the middle caused by your boot soles. And that smell won't go away for at least 4 days. It'll fade out in 4 days. But for 4 days, those deer can smell that hunter's trail scent. And there's nothing you can do about it. Well, there are things you can do about it, but this is what you're dealing with when you're hunting older bucks. It's this stuff that makes older bucks so much harder to hunt. Now, look at this trail. Look at it. this one is made by an ATV, see? Now, let's talk about that a little bit. You know, I have hunters tell me, oh, I don't leave any trail set in the woods because I ride my ATV to my stand site. Well, what do you get instead? Now, ATVs are not without odor. You know that. You get exhaust odors coming from them. When the engine is hot, you can smell the oil and things like that, grease that's on the machine, and you can smell those smells. And look at, they got 4 big tires, and those tires are huge compared to the boot soles of a boot, of a hunter's boots. Well, so you get this double line of much solid all along the, wherever that ATV or OHV goes, rubber being laid down on the ground. And all that other odor, like from the exhaust and the hot oil and maybe paint and all the other odor, you know your ATV isn't odorless, just sniff it. It's got all kinds of odors coming up. They're all being laid on this huge wide trail wherever that machine goes. And if you think that using an ATV makes it impossible for whitetails to smell you, holy cow, look what the trail you've made instead when you're riding an ATV to a stand site. That's silly. And bucks like that aren't going to be fooled. They know what that trail means. That rubber smell, those rubber smells, for example, are only made by humans who hunt deer. And boy, when you're laying down trails like that, or you hunt, man, are you making it easy for experienced older deer to avoid you and avoid areas that you're using, the trails you're using, stand sites you're using, all those things. Now, I know we're going to have an ATV in our camp this year, but no one in our camp uses an ATV to go to a stand site because we don't want this kind of a trail leading to it. No way. We only want this kind of a trail. And actually there are 3 ways you can minimize the effect of a human trail with footprints can affect the whitetails near your stand site so that you can often get there without them even realizing you're there. But how in the world can you get an ATV there without them hearing it and seeing it and smelling it? It can't be done. So you guys, you know, they're wonderful. I'm 86. I wish I could use an ATV nowadays. I can't tell you how much more difficult it is for me to get around the woods at my age, at age 86. If I could use a motorized vehicle to get close to my stand sites, I would do it. I sure would do it. But I know I'm wasting my time by doing something like that. It just isn't going to work, and there's nobody in my camp that will argue with me about that. We've all learned the hard way, and we've done some serious research with whitetails and how they react to human trail scent and ATV trail scent. And believe me, this kind of thing does not fool whitetails. So, if you don't mind taking fawns and yearlings, you probably could get some deer every year using an ATV to get close to wherever you plan to hunt. But if you want older bucks, or older does for that matter, it should be pretty easy for you to see which kind of trail scent would be easier for you to use. And I hate to say that, you guys. You know, after you spend all that money on that wonderful ATV that's so powerful it could pull your truck around with it, and it's so nice to ride out there, hardly have to use any leg power at all. It's so how wonderful that is. Or to go grouse hunting, ride this thing around till you find a grouse and get it. No. But think about it. Not only is this less likely to be make you successful at hunting, but it's not quite sportsmanlike. You have to agree. So I hope we're not heading in a direction where we are going to be demanding ATV trails all over the woods so we can go deer hunting on ATVs. But it's starting to look that way. Think about it, guys. And there's lots of ways you can use an ATV. Like, gee, you got a big buck out there, you want to get it to camp. Well, boy, that would sure make the job a lot easier. I'd have to cut a buck into little pieces and carry it out and spend days getting it back to my camp if I didn't have a lot of help from my sons and grandsons, big husky guys. Man, they can pull a deer on a sled out so quickly, it's unbelievable. But anyway, think about that. And next time any of you guys come up my trail and we start to I always make fun with these guys. I don't make fun of people using ATVs. I don't want to get in any controversy about that. But every once in a while I feel like saying, isn't that a wonderful machine for you handicapped people? When I say that to young guys, obviously healthy, and his wife sitting there and some kids in the back seat and all that. But isn't this a wonderful thing for people handicapped like you? And they'll look at me like, what are you talking about? He's not handicapped. Well, you might consider in the future, start using leg power. You'll be a better hunter, more successful hunter if you do. You will. And I'll sure respect you a lot more if you do as well. And probably a lot of other hunters as well. Well, anyway, deer hunting is about to begin in our state. Here's another thing too. I guess if I'm going to give you some more advice about using an ATV to get close to where you're going to hunt, we've learned, we've done a lot of research with black bears and whitetails when it comes to using ATVs today, and I've written about it in my books. Nowadays, I guess if I had a stand site way over there and I could get close, I could drive to it. Let's say I could drive within 100 yards of it with my ATV and park it and then walk in. You might be thinking this would be a safe thing to do, but it isn't. You park an ATV, hear a deer, a buck in the woods or other deer, and they hear this thing coming, and all of a sudden it stops right over there. It's silent. That's kind of scary to them because they know what this means, that pretty soon there's going to be a human hunter walking around here, and they have to be cautious about this sort of thing. A lot of deer say, we're getting out of here right now. Or a lot of them say, well, I'm going to wait a little bit and see what happens. Maybe the hunter will go a different direction, but they're going to be really alert for a while after that thing stops right over there. And then they hear the footsteps of a hunter approaching, and this hunter is hunting. And what does a hunter who's hunting often do? He often stops to look around. There's a deer around here, listening, and then he sneaks ahead a little more and maybe changes direction a few times. I'm going to go over there, and he's trying to use cover so that if there's a deer up ahead, they can't see him, and doing that kind of thing. Those are sounds made by a stalking bear or wolf. And boy, those deer don't like to hear those kind of sounds. They're going to get out of there, at least the older ones. Younger deer might not realize those kind of sounds are dangerous. But at any rate, what we've learned is this. If you're going to use an ATV to get close to a stand site or an area where you're planning to hunt on foot, don't approach any closer than a quarter mile. You still have to walk a quarter mile. Well, how many? Maybe that's 400 yards you have to. That's not such a great distance to walk. And your odds of being able to get close to that deer without the deer being alarmed by your approach are much better when you're on foot. And you can do a really good job of it if you learn the 3 techniques you can use to make it very difficult for whitetails to identify you when you're moving toward them on foot. Found in my books and previous seminars on YouTube. But keep those things in mind. But don't park within a quarter mile. Bear hunting, I feel more like you shouldn't get within a half mile. You can't just drive there and then have somebody drive it away and park it a quarter mile away and fool a bear. And most older bucks as well. But the easier you make it for those whitetails to realize you're there by using a motorized vehicle, the poorer your chances of ever taking a really big trophy class buck. So, sorry about that. I wish it wasn't that way myself. So, well, hey guys, our hunting season starts in a week. And, we worked so hard to try to make it a good one this year. And so I'm hoping we'll be lucky this year, a little luckier than last year, I hope, with only 3 deer per square mile. And I wish you guys all the luck. You got a lot more deer and probably a lot more big bucks than I do, because you don't have all the wolves we have. But so, best of luck to all of you. Get a big one for the wall this year and do it right. And be sure now, well, before you leave, click on that subscribe button down below and the thumbs up below. Those are favors to me. Would you do that, please? Favors to your guys that are on YouTube. And keep this in mind too, you know. If you want to be remembered as a friend or father, brother, whatever, sister, mother, as somebody who gave somebody a book that provided them with the best buck hunting of their life for the rest of their life, then consider purchasing my Whitetail Hunter's Almanac 10th edition, which is available. I had a little trouble on the internet with guys getting it to my website so they could order these books, but it's open now. And when you buy one on my website, you can get a free copy of one of my earlier Whitetail Hunter's Almanacs as well. Keep that in mind. But Christmas is coming up. What a wonderful time to give a friend or a son or a daughter or a brother a book that's going to give them the best buck hunting of their lives for the rest of their life. So keep that in mind, will you? Okay, thanks a lot, guys. See you again soon. Be sure to visit my website. Here's the link. Here you'll find links to my blog posts, my Twitter account, my YouTube account, my Amazon store with links to my ebooks, my son's eBay store, a money saver if you're ordering from Canada or other countries, my website bookstore, and much more.